Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the best games of all time. Fight me on that one. And having played it so much, I started to wonder, especially at the time when I was trying to take a step back from video games, was what has this game actually taught me? What has the story taught me? What has the characters taught me? And very strangely, the thought came to mind that selfishness was something that Red Dead taught me. Specifically, Arthur Morgan, the main protagonist, and how he needed to be more selfish and how his selflessness ultimately led to his demise. Now, I'm not saying that you should be completely selfish, egotistical, completely reject humanity. Not at all, but if you want to help others, you have to help yourself. And in the story of Red Dead, spoilers if you haven't played it already, but I'm assuming you have if you clicked on this video. Um, Arthur reconnects with an old love of his called Mary, and they have the opportunity to run away together. He still has feelings for her. She wants him to run away with him. And when she asks him, he simply says, "Oh, I want to, but I can't. I've got some people to take care of. We need money." As soon as that, he's free. And it was that loyalty that kept him there. The loyalty to the gang that had raised him, to the people that he was protecting. When in the end, it was all for nothing. The loyalty meant nothing. The trust was broken. Betrayal was rampant. And it gives you some reflection in your life because is it wrong to look out for number one? Is it wrong to think of your best interests? In Arthur's case, he probably should have thought about himself more. If he thought about himself, he could have recovered from his tuberculosis. He could have ran away with Mary and had a happy, long life. And you could argue it's betrayal, but the gang was falling apart. People were being killed needlessly. Dutch was losing his mind. And it is somewhat admirable that Arthur stayed. But I don't know, man. I feel like in that situation, if I saw how things were falling apart, if I saw that there was no light at the end of this tunnel, I would have to leave. And it's that selfishness that can be very, very distressing, especially if you have people around you that you care about. But the best way to help others, as I said, is to help yourself. You cannot expect to have a successful situation, to do the best for the people around you, if you're miserable, if you're weak, if you're sleep deprived, if you're working harder and harder, feeling completely burnt out. It's the same on aeroplanes. They always say put your own mask, oxygen mask on before you put others' masks on. Because if you've got kids or people next to you and put your mask on after them, if you help to put the kids' mask on and you just, you know, pass out, that kid's screwed, man. Like there's no way to it. But you needed to be selfish in that situation in order to be selfless. And Arthur is a very inspiring character, a very conflicted character who always tried to do the best in the situation. He was a good man that did bad things. And I'm not saying we should aspire to be like him, but there are certain aspects of his personality that we should reflect on and take into account. And we could alternatively argue that the loyalty is something that we need to look at, but loyalty is one of those things, man, those abstract things that can be broken in a moment. It takes years to build, like years, sometimes a decade to build this seemingly unbreakable, cemented loyalty. And then in an instant, it can be broken. It can feel as if everything that you've been through is for naught. And that's a case for a lot of companies these days, obviously relationships. Loyalty is something that people are trying to push aside. Like there's people that want it, and then there's other people who's like, oh, I'm not loyal to anyone else. And that's the wrong kind of selfishness. They're the kind of people who feel like they don't have to be loyal to anything, they don't have to stand for anything, they don't have to be anything. And they're trying to heal from some pain that someone inflicted on them. And they don't want to feel that same pain again. They don't want to hurt the same way. And that's why loyalty for them, they just hate. They want to escape from it because their loyalty was broken. Whether that was the trust that was broken by their parents, who they thought was their caregiver and just abused them. Whether it was the adultery committed in a relationship. There's bad selfishness and there's good selfishness. I myself am an individualist. I think you should look out for number one. Of course, have companions, have people in your life that you love and respect that you can bring along to the journey. But I remember a guy saying, and I'll never forget it. It was a very interesting picture. It was a part-time job I was working at, and we were about to close, but he came in to buy something, and he had a suitcase with him, and a person in the store said, "Oh, looks like you've been kicked out of your girlfriend's." And he's like, "Oh, is it that obvious?" And they were talking, and then he looked at me, saw I was quite young, and he said, "Listen, bro, life's a single player game. Have companions, have friends, but you came into this world alone, and you'll leave it alone." And it was very interesting. Obviously, I had no idea of why that guy was kicked out of his girlfriend's place. He could have been an absolute psycho for all I know. But the words did stick with me. That life is a single player game. We cannot dwell too much on the thoughts of others, on what other people do. And we certainly cannot help people to the extent that it diminishes ourselves. Now, selflessness can be destructive, the same way selfishness can be destructive. The thing about selflessness is that, have you ever heard of those people who are too nice, who compromise their own safety, their own money, things like that to help other people because they think it's the right thing? It can be difficult for them to really think of themselves for one bit. And it, again, stems a lot from childhood, from people who had to look after other people at a young age, who had to sacrifice their own happiness so that the people around them could have had a chance. And I think about my life, and I've definitely had times where I wish I was more selfish. I wish that I had spoken out more about what I truly believe in. I wish that I had not just said yes to everything, not just been a doormat for people to walk on, just to take the hits and not try to block them, move out the way, or counter the hits. I don't know, man. As I said, it's hard because I don't want to give out a message of not helping people and not being kind, because it's wonderful to be kind. It's wonderful to put others before yourself in certain situations. But if you live your entire life like that, if you are constantly putting yourself in a disadvantaged position, you're nurturing the growth of other people while slowly leading to the destruction of yourself. That isn't right, man. If you're wanting to help people, there has to be some mutual benefit. It sounds crazy, it sounds horrible, and I think I'm not putting the correct words to it, but growth needs to be mutual. You need to be helping people as well as helping yourself. You shouldn't be at a certain position. Let's say you're at the top of the podium and there's a guy below you who's struggling. you certainly should not be that guy who spits on the guy below him, steps on him in order to get higher up. But you certainly should not be the guy who helps the other guy to such extent that he's now above you. And who knows, man, as I said, loyalty is fickle. That guy who you could have helped, who you gave money to, who you sacrificed time for, with him being more powerful than you, he could switch like that. And in Red Dead, I'm trying to bring it back to Red Dead, but Arthur could have lived. Arthur didn't have to die. But it was the fact that he was so loyal to the gang that raised him. He had a good heart. But he had a chance to escape. And had he been a little more selfish, had he have latched onto his instincts and really sort of followed his heart, followed his love for Mary, he could have survived. And I completely agree. You know, I completely respect people who completely disagree, saying that it was a tough situation and that he shouldn't have tried to betray the gang. But knowing what we know with the story, it was something he should have done. And in our own lives, we can reflect on this and really, really start to think, okay, am I too selfish or am I too selfless? I don't think you should be too much of anything. But if I had to pick between one or the other, I would try to be more selfish than others, because you can't really rely on people. Again, this is sounding like such a nihilistic video, but you're the only person that you're around all the time. You know exactly what you're thinking, you know exactly what you like, what you dislike. And there's people in this world who will try to screw you over. There's people who you think you can trust. There's people who you could have been friends since you were born, man. You could have known them for a lifetime. Yet they could be corrupted by something, or maybe they were corrupted by the start and they were just using you as a tool. But all it takes is the fact that you were so selfless, you put so much trust in this person, you didn't see the red flags, you ignored them, and then you were betrayed. You've got to be a good judge of character, and sometimes people are so evil and manipulative that they will be completely two-faced. It was impossible to see the signs. Or maybe there were no signs, they were that sinister. And I think we'll all eventually go through a situation like this where we'll be betrayed in some way. We'll have friends who we thought were good-hearted, who had our best interests at heart, but then they said something, they did something that completely threw the loyalty and the friendship to the dirt. Could be through something as extreme as cheating in a relationship, or it could be that you've heard that someone's talking about you behind your back. That every time you're out of the room, they slander your name. You can be kind, you can have respect for people, you can help people, but please have a backbone. Do not be spineless. Arthur Morgan was a guy with a backbone, but he had a lack of purpose. He wanted to feel like he belonged. And the way he got that was through the gang. And he felt that he had to stick with it because it was the right thing to do, because it would have been seen as distasteful if he left. But when it leads to your own demise, you can't argue with that. You've got to just say, okay, I needed to be more selfish in that situation. I needed to put myself first in order to do better for myself. and then eventually the people around me. If the foundations are weak, the whole house will come crashing down. But let me know what you think, bro. It's a tough nut to crack, but it's just so interesting how Red Dead can have such an impact. Like a game that came out getting close to what, 10 years ago now? Crazy. Has still such a rich story with crazy characters that you can really think about and really think, okay, what can I learn from this individual, this fictional individual, the same way that we can learn from individuals in books, whether they be fiction or non-fiction. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, bro. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. God bless, and as always, you take very good care of yourself.